Welcome, everybody. It's been a little bit of time since I last spoken. My name's Nadeem, and my wife Romina, and you saw my two daughters with another family here, so it was great. I moved to Colorado since like November, so it's been now 6 months. Wow, a long time. So now I'm kind of getting used to the drastic change in weathers. You guys have like insane changes of weathers. One day it's snowing, and then all of a sudden it's like 70 degrees, and then now it's gonna rain. So I'm like, all right, cool. In Arizona, it's just hot all the time. It's just like 110 throughout 6 months, 7 months, and you just bear with it. But it's good. I like it here. It's a lot more people walk. When I went outside and people picnicked, I thought that was really, really interesting. Like in Arizona, nobody's outside, so it's good. So yeah, I'm gonna introduce. Last time I talked about my childhood and my testimony, and then I alluded that I'll give part two. So today's part two. So this is part two of my testimony, but I'll do a little recap. But throughout the slides, you'll notice I have in my sermons, I do a lot of kids' books in my sermons. So this is a book that I got that somebody gave Ayana, my oldest one, who's 5 years old now. And it's from a Buddhist author. And he really explains, their journey of life. But it'll go through my slides. You can read them. It's a really, really great book. But last time I shared, I talked about my journey growing up and how I came into this church communities. And I grew up in a pretty complicated environment. My parents were from Bangladesh. It's a little country next to India. I don't know if you guys know. And their marriage was arranged. My mom was about 15 years old. My dad was about 32, around that age. So there was quite a big age gap. And eventually they came to the United States. But their relationship didn't work. And it allowed, because my mom came to America, allowed for her to separate with my dad at that time. So my mom had to rebuild her life while raising me, and she worked full time, went to school, eventually got a degree in electrical engineering, worked as a NASA contractor and all that stuff, building shuttles and all that. So I'm really, really proud of her. But because of that, I spent a lot of time growing up alone. And I learned how to take care of myself really early. I learned how to be independent. But I also carried a lot of insecurities that carried me through adulthood. And honestly, I didn't really feel like I belonged anywhere. Then through a friend, I was introduced to this community. And I didn't understand divine principle at that time or, our text, scriptures, or anything like that. But what I saw was the families. And they weren't perfect families, but families that stayed together, and they showed up for each other. They lived life together, and that's something that stayed with me. Looking back now, I can see that before I understood God with my mind, I experienced God with my heart through people, right? And I felt less alone. Later on, through a lot of transitions, I made the decision to leave home at 18, and I knew I just had to take that step. And through college, I stayed connected, kept learning, kept growing, just different things about the church community and the principal. Went to New York, did a lot of carp workshops and all that stuff. Then eventually, I went through the matching and blessing through my wife, which is our ceremony to get married and all that stuff. Some of you last time saw the video of me and Romina on ABC Nightline News, giving our first hug together and all that stuff. So my mom I didn't mention this, but my mom was so anti-arranged marriage because of her experience. And so she told me, raised me up with, don't ever get arranged marriage, it's the worst thing ever. And so lo and behold, that's how I'm thankful, because I couldn't not find a wife like Romina. And last time I also shared a little bit about a relationship with my mom. And it wasn't easy. There was lots of misunderstandings, a lot of distance. But through time, through marriage, and honestly through growth that I didn't expect, we were able to rebuild that relationship. And at the end of my mom's life, we were there with her, and she passed away in October 2023. And we finally had the relationship we both wanted. It wasn't perfect, but it was real and full of love. And so that's where I left off last time. And so this little picture kind of depicts where we should just take time and really, really understand. And, everybody talks about smelling the roses, right? But it's really, something's not going to last forever, right? So we should treat it as preciousness. And so Romina and I were married at 21 and 22, so really, really young, really early. And so after we had the blessing ceremony, our marriage ceremony, Romina went to STF Europe doing missionary work, and I stayed here in the United States. I did my master's in business and electrical engineering. So even when we were married, we were just living two different lives. She was out there conquering the world. I was here doing something, getting a degree or whatever. And so we had a great relationship virtually. A lot of cacao messages, a lot of texting, how are you, and all that stuff. It was all great. But finally, then in November 2015, we actually had to move in and live together. And that's where my next testimony starts. So Romina moved to Arizona, where I grew up and raised, in 2015, and we started living together. And I didn't even properly introduce her to my parents. I was like, this is a girl. She just literally came in from the airport. And then I just took her to my dad's house because I was living with my dad. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is a girl. And that was my only conversation with my dad. He was like, what? Who is this person living with us? But, I don't know how Romina stayed with me. Even with my parents, I'm like, oh, this is a girl. And so it was awkward, and honestly, I don't even know how Romina stayed with me through that. But somehow we figured it out. And so looking back, because we were so young, I didn't really overanalyze the blessing that I might do today at 34 or 35. I didn't think, am I fully ready? I didn't think, am I perfect? I just knew one thing. I was willing to change. Well, three things. I was willing to change, I was willing to put God at the center, and I was willing to get help when I needed, because I knew there was lots of resources, lots of counseling and all that stuff, and I knew no matter what, hey, if I had those three things, I could figure it out at that young age. That's what I thought. And so it turned out to be pretty true. So divine principle teaches us that the blessing is not a reward for perfection, but the beginning of restoration. So Sun Myung Moon, our true father, one of the founders of our church, often said, marriage is not for the sake of the individual, but for the sake of God and the world. And at that time, I didn't fully understand, but I was stepping into it. And so, yeah, I really like this. It's not about, people say it's about the journey or the destination, but that's not true. It's about the company, right? So I really like that quote. So we were building success. So we started building our lives in 2016. We built our finances together. We were pretty disciplined, and Romina got a great job in the semiconductor industry, and I started working for various different industries to build experience. We also had a business on the side. It wasn't our main profession, but it was additional income stream. It helped us grow, develop mindset, and build something together outside of our regular jobs. And we lived off one income. We saved or invested in the other. We had mentorship. We were encouraged to think big, to dream, to believe we were meant for something greater. And honestly, externally, we definitely looked like the model couple. But internally, it wasn't like that. There was a lot of miscommunication. There was a lot of intimacy struggles. We didn't know how to truly connect. Our relationship with our parents was complicated. You heard my story. Romina had different situations. My parents were here. Romina's parents were overseas. But I did find it easier to love her parents a little bit different than she could with her own parents. And she saw good in my parents that I couldn't see. So there was a lot of things that we learned from each other just by being with each other and really, really trying to figure our whole relationship. I barely communicated because I just lived alone, isolated, right? So communication was just at the back burner for me. And definitely we were going to church, but we weren't really engaged. We were just like living life, and in my thought, and it was such a guy mindset. I don't know how many guys can relate, but like, oh, if our finances are good, then our life is set. We don't have to think about anything else. We have money in the bank, that's it, right? I don't know how many guys think like that, but that was definitely my mindset, but that was totally not true. I was very good at sweeping stuff under the rug. Even now, I'm pretty good at sweeping stuff under the rug. But even in our business, it was growing, but it was definitely built on weak foundation. And then the divine principle, teaches us that restoration must happen internally first. True Mother, also one of our founders, Hak Jahan, said, "A true family begins when husband and wife unite, centered on heaven, and create a culture of heart." We had scripture, we had discipline, but we didn't have deep unity of heart. So in 2019, Romina became pregnant, and it shifted her heart immediately. But I was still focused on money, security, and building our future. Then in February 2020, our baby boy was born, and shortly after he passed. And honestly, life kept moving after that. We didn't really have time to process everything right away, because right after that, February 2020, our son passed away, and then March 2020, COVID lockdowns began, right? And so everything kind of went into, the whole world stopped. I'm sure some of you have experienced that, right? Our business disappeared almost overnight. Our finances were shaken. We were completely isolated. And for the first time, we couldn't run anymore. We had to sit with everything. Because for the first time since our marriage, we actually had to slow down. We talked, we listened, we reflected. We joined multiple marriage programs online. We connected through people across the nation through Zoom. We met other couples going through the similar things. And for the first time, we truly connected. Divine principle, it's a little bit, it kind of has this illusion that sometimes it's in the stillness when everything else quiets down, that when you really see what really, really matters. So True Father talks about when you center on true love, everything becomes settled and peaceful. God dwells where there's love and unity. And for us, that season wasn't about figuring everything out. It was coming back to the center, back to our relationship, back to listening, back to what really, really matters. So, at the end of 2020, Romina became pregnant again. Then in April 2021, our daughter, Ayana, who's the dancer here, was born. And around that same time, there was a strong push nationally for young people to step in leadership. And I was approached to become pastor. And it was interesting because we were just leading Zoom meetings because we were the only ones who knew how to do Zoom in Arizona. And so Reverend Thompson joined one of our Zoom meetings. It's like, oh, a young person, he should be the pastor. And that's how literally it happened. It wasn't like some division or anything like that. It was just like, oh, he knows how to run Zoom, so he should be pastor. So that's pretty much how it happened. And so I told Romina, we were driving to one of our uncles, or one of the church elders' house, and I was saying, oh, Romina, I'm not going to say yes to this. I'm going to say no, don't worry about it. It's not going to ruin our family dynamics or anything like that. But when I got to the meeting, I just said, yes, I'll be pastor. And so that definitely was, I still don't fully know why. Obviously, Romina was pretty upset. I gave her Chick-fil-A because she didn't give birth to Ayana yet. It was April 2021. It was March 2021 when I was approached to be pastor. So she had a Chick-fil-A cravings all the time. So I gave her Chick-fil-A. We talked a lot. Still, I'm working on my communication skills, as you can tell. So I didn't have the background, I didn't have the title, but I had heart. And with our small family, we stepped into pastorship. And I definitely lost some friends. I gained deeper relationships. I learned how to really be there for people. And during my time, I conducted about 7 sangwas. Sangwas are our funeral ceremony in our church. And being with people in their final moments, really hearing what really, really matters to them, I really learned it was never about money, it was never about status, it was always about love. It was always about relationships and how they lived for others, right? And I came to believe this pretty deeply, is your life's success is determined by how many people are better off because you lived. And I like this quote because when I talk to different people who joined the movement, they're like, oh, I wanted to change the world, right? And, the best thing to change the world is just starting with the person right next to you, just saying hi for them, all that stuff. That's truly changing. And True Mother emphasized that the family is school of love, and through living for the sake of others, we resemble heavenly parents. And that's what I saw over and over again, is when people have transitioned to the spirit world, I saw the people that they impacted for good. Whether they're in the movement, outside the movement, it never mattered. It was just that they impacted for something higher. And that's what really, really matters. And so, around the birth of our second daughter in August 2023, and right after, a month later, my mom passed away. At that same time, I started a new job. It was a new transition for me, still trying to figure out pastorship. Then in April 2025, we went to Korea and one of our training grounds, Chungpyeong. I don't know how many of you guys went there. In the last 5 years or so, it's definitely changed since the 90s and 2000s. It's a totally different, and that experience really, really opened my eyes. Not just spiritually, but practically. Seeing what has been built with the palace, with the training center, there's a bunch of kids' toilets and kids, little activities and stuff like that. My daughters loved it. They're like, when can we go back? Because there's the aquarium, there's the zoo, there's so many things there now. So I don't know if you guys been there in the last 5 years, but it's a whole different experience than what I've learned. But, and as I reflected, one thought really stayed with me there. And some people are like candles. They burn themselves out to give light to others. And I really thought about all the members before us, what they sacrificed, what they endured. A lot of my friends, like my older friends who are second generation, who had to pave the way of uncertainty at that time and trying to figure everything out. And so that we could live this life of faith, right? So that my daughters and this community can grow up and be really united. And so, and that really changed how I saw everything. And after that trip, I knew something was shifting. And then when we came to Colorado Family Camp last summer in 2025, I had this feeling that this might be a place that we're meant to be. I knew the transition of my pastorship was coming to a close. And so I started applying for jobs, and one opened up exactly what I was looking for, and November 2025, I moved here. And now we're here, and now we have another, thank you. Now we have another daughter on the way in summer. In 2026, yeah. So we're still looking for names with an A, but it's okay. But when I look back, I see a pattern. Oops, I keep forgetting slides. I saw a pattern. There were so many moments when I didn't know what to do. In my childhood, in my marriage, in loss, in leadership, in transition, even now. But I knew I was never truly alone. There were always people. There was always guidance. There was always heavenly parents working quietly in the background. And divine principle teaches us that God's providence unfolds through time, through relationships, and through sincerity. And even when we don't see it, it's there. So if you're in a place right now or you don't know what to do, you might not be alone either. So that's all I wanted to share. Thank you so much. Yeah, and you can talk to me. There's so much more, but I didn't want to bore you guys through my testimony. But thank you for listening to part 2 of my testimony. So thank you so much.